Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of You Are the Guide. Today, we're going to be talking about a very important topic that I want to make sure I talk about here early on, and it is about some of my biggest spiritual red flags, things that I find that are very important to look for when you are jumping into the world of spirituality and wanting to learn about tools that could potentially you think are going to help you and then they could affect you. One of the most horrific things to see is good intended people that start learning spiritual processes and spirituality because they want to get better, they want to feel better, and they end up experiencing spiritual psychosis where they no longer can really feel safe in their reality because they allowed their mind to go so much out there where they're not living in the here and now. And I find that the foundation of having a good life, a good human life, is to be rooted in reality, to be responsible for our reality, and to try to be the best humans that we can be, ideally living from a place of virtue or being just good people that don't want to harm others. I mean, that's my humble and personal opinion. I know not everybody sees it that way, but I think that when you have that, then it could be very useful to use some spiritual concepts as tools, but not from a way that takes you away from who you are or real life or people that love you or things like that. So this episode today is more like a conversation. I hope you sit with it and you allow yourself to contemplate what would be your spiritual red flags. They don't have to be mine or what I'm about to share, but you want to come up with yours. So when you see that, you can identify it and decide if you ever want to maybe not partake in something, you know? And recently, I saw this, which is, it's important to just bring up. I really, honestly, I'm not gonna name the people because first I don't know them by in my like the top of my head. I would have to find them. And second, because I want to respect as much as I can the fact that they probably don't want more people bothering them right now. But this was happening in TikTok drama. If you're not part of that world, where this creator came up and she made a 3-part series explaining and warning the spiritual community, where she was saying that this other creator was almost like putting, like, energetically attacking her and stealing her energy and sexually, like, affecting her energy, and that this person, he was affecting her finances, and that he told her he was going to marry her and was her twin flame and all these things. And I'm not going to be verbatim because I don't know exactly everything. I watched it, but I don't remember everything. Only to find out later in the video that she mentions that all of this happened telepathically and in her dreams, but not in real life. I mean, not in physical life, not in this dimension, the way she put it, but it happened in her dreams and telepathically, but it was happening and it was real. And it was just like, whoa, hold on. And it's interesting because it opens for a very, very interesting conversation. He came out with a video saying like, oh, because after she was saying that for 6 months this was happening, she actually booked a session with him because they had never met in real life. This person found him on social media, started following, and she claims that he started using magic and all of this to affect her energy. And for 6 months, that's all she could think about because he was affecting her. But all was telepathically and in her mind and in her dreams. But because she thought that it was like, I don't know her reasoning behind it, but she ended up booking a session with him where they met online. Can you believe that? To me, I was like, okay, I don't know. Like, to me, it's like, if let's say if in some weird dimension this person is coming and telling you in your mind and telepathically and harassing you and like being so intense, why would you book a session? Wouldn't you want to be like, no, no, no? And if it's not true, booking a session is horrible because it's almost like stalking. Like you're obsessed with this person and then you're booking a session with them in real life. Anyway, they booked the session and, you know, I don't know exactly what happened in the session. He guided her, I think he said for business stuff. And then he never knew she was going through all of this. And he now made a video where he was saying that he feels violated, that she's putting all this stuff out there, saying that she in her mind lived this, claiming it's true. And now people are coming for him because in some way, when she doesn't clarify too well, it sounds like he did all these things in real life, but he never did. They've never met in person. Anyways, it's so interesting because it's just so, it's impossible to ever prove something like that. And that is where the limitations of physical matter come in as of now. I mean, I don't know where we're evolving to as as a species, but for now we have limitations. And the thing is that if it's not happening in this reality right here, and we have proof, we cannot come for somebody like that. And if you are thinking that somebody is affecting your energy like that, then you do need help and you should protect your energy. But I just feel that unfortunately, it's very hard to prove. I will say, though, she seems genuinely affected. And that's what's the hardest thing. She seems like a good human being, like a good person. I don't think she's doing this malintentioned. But unfortunately, it's affecting her life so much from those videos. And there's no way to prove that this is happening or not. And now it's affecting his life as well. And that is why I wanted to talk about this. And I think partly it was my inspiration of how can we be more grounded and more self-aware when we enter this world of spiritual concepts. So I wrote a little list here. Some of the things is that, kind of going off what I just mentioned, one of the biggest red flags for me is any kind of spiritual concept that pushes you to deny reality and hyper focus in the past or the future. There's a lot of spiritual practices that are very focused excessively, and we need to go to the past and we need to go to the ancestors and we need to be almost like obsessed with the healing of the past. And I've been there, trust me. And we become so attuned to that reality feels like a blob, like we are not fully alive and here because of this obsession of going into the past or this obsession of going into the future or possibly other realities. And to me, that's always so crazy because if we cannot embrace, fully accept, love, and preciously love this reality that is this moment, how are we thinking that what are we thinking we're going to do with those other realities? And that is why one of the main things with spirituality recently is the mass escapism. It is as a mass society, or what do you call it, collective. We want to escape reality because we find reality so hard to deal with that this concept of something bigger than me is going to save me becomes so beautifully packaged that we just want to buy it from whoever sells it to us because we don't accept ourselves or we hate ourselves and we want to learn to that is why I believe we all need to learn to embrace ourselves, because that is where our power lies. Our point of power is always in the present moment. So we want to embrace this present moment and see what we can do here with who we are before we try to go anywhere else. So anybody that comes to try to tell me like, oh, like I believe I am so open-minded. I believe in so many things and I explore them and I become curious about them. But when it's something heavily rooted in other things or praising something else that is not tangible in an extreme way, which happens a lot with religion, it just doesn't sit well with me anymore because it used to. I grew up very religious and that was just my reality of what I consider God. But now it's all about if I'm tapping to a state of being, of a sacred energy or something like that, I want to use that state of being to serve this reality and these people here. I don't want it just for myself, or I don't want it just to tap to it to be more evolved. No, which leads me to my second point, which another big red flag is anybody that claims to be superior or special, or I was born special, I developed this superpower that you don't have. No, that doesn't sit well with me anymore. I used to be impressed by that. I used to be like, wow, that person was born so special, or evolved. Now, when somebody comes with that, it's like a complete and total turnoff. I admire I admire people that are just embracing being themselves and that don't need to prove any kind of superior or super to anybody else. So I would invite you to observe that. There's so many recent Netflix episodes on cults, which is something that I also want to later make an episode about. I want to talk about us asking ourselves, have I ever been in a cult or a cult-like environment? Not all of them are cults, but a lot of the groups that we can belong to in spirituality can be cult-like. And I'm not against them. I'm open to learn from them. For example, I used to love Tony Robbins. I still like him and I still like to learn there's moments where I need that intense energy, but I'm not feel like I'm like a groupie like I used to be because it's cult like. It's not a cult in my perspective because it doesn't fully take away people's freedom. Now with the level of how expensive things are and how it doesn't think in how money, the level of pricing that they have is too intense, where I feel that it does in some weird way take away people's freedom because it enslaved them into debt because you get so motivated that you're like, I want to buy all the programs. But anyways, that's an example. Okay. I'm not against them. I love to volunteer for, his events. I love to serve and volunteer and see the people that go to Tony Robbins have this drive to be like very wanting to be better. And I love that. So I like to take the positive from everywhere, unless it is really, really extremely negative and it's hurting people or taking away people's freedom. I do not stand for that. So no. But anyways, I don't like to see somebody that's called themselves special, or for me personally, because it reinforces the concept of separation instead of we're all the same and we're all unique, but we're all able to reach that connection with our spirituality regardless of anything. I believe that. And then the third one here is about, first I wanted to talk about going back to anything that goes back to because I'm special, I hold the truth. And in my truth, I feel you need to change yourself. And it becomes this thing of, I was going to mention there all the cult documentaries that have been coming out where, they're guiding people to change their identities, change who they are, change their sexuality, change where they live, stop talking to your family. That's a no for me. That's a huge no. I don't care how much I could possibly align to some wisdom that you're sharing. At the foundation of spirituality for me, it's to be a good person. So if you are taking away anybody's freedom or manipulating people into running away from themselves and life, it's a no for me. But there's a lot of groups out there that also begin to tell you how much you need to change yourself. And we see it a lot more when it comes to plant medicine. It's like you won't reach enlightenment, or I sat there and was one with the universe with one ceremony of this and that. And I see it all the time. I'm not against it. Once again, I'm not against it. Everything is a tool. But if you ever meet people that offer that and say, these are the benefits, if you think it helps you and you want to go ahead and do it, there it is, instead of, you have to do it. It's the only way to reach high levels of consciousness quickly. And I think it goes back to tapping into your intuition and being very connected into your intuition. And that goes back to, if you are not in a good place mentally, you can find yourself lost. If you're suffering from mental health issues, if you have complex PTSD, if you have autism, ADHD, your brain functions different, or your trauma has trained your nervous system in a different way, where it may be very easy for you to be easily impressed and believe things as factual. And for that reason, think, oh, if I want to reach enlightenment because I want to better myself, I need to now do this plant medicine that I don't feel right about doing. And that's why we need to be careful, where when you pick up on the red flags, somebody's saying they are the only ones that know. Only the extremes, only plant medicine is going to help you. Only we are the only special ones in our group. There's no one that knows as much as me. No, the true master knows that we are all the same. That was the great teaching of Jesus, right? He was able to recognize that when it was said, like, we're made by his image, is we're all the same. There's no superiority. So those are the main things I wanted to talk about here today. I think I wanted to talk about it more than anything because I hope you use this as information to be discerning. And even as I open up to bring guests here into my show, or into our show, I take that back. You remain open to see what feels right for you and what doesn't. And I want to make sure that what I do when I invite people is that it's people that I feel aligned with, or people that I feel that it would be beneficial to ask questions to, because they may provide information that could be helpful, so things like that. So yes, today, that is pretty much all I wanted to share with you today. I would love to know if you have any specific spirituality red flags, or if you've experienced spiritual psychosis and you feel comfortable talking about it. Feel free to share. You can share in your comments. You can share in a private message. And just know that if you're interested in learning more about the Gene Keys, since I'm going to be talking more about it, we have a free course that is guided by Richard Rudd. It's completely free, and it guides you into like a 3-day experience. And I just want to say, it kind of reminded me, one of the reasons why I love the Gene Keys is because I've learned that sometimes it's not about following the teacher or having reference to the teacher, but following the wisdoms. And even though Richard Rudd, it was an example of a teacher, right? And we're talking about red flags. Some of the green flags is that he's just one of the many, okay? It's not only him right now. It's just a topic that's coming up, but he is very open to being virtuous, like when it comes to the pricing of his things, to be realistic to people. Or when you meet him in person, he's the most humble person. He's not trying to be like the teacher. He's trying to be one with you and the crowd. And I find that to be very respectful. I admire the way any so-called spiritual teacher acts in front of others when they're receiving any kind of service. Those are the things that I like to witness. So anyways, I just thought about it. But if you want to get the free course, remember, youaretheguide.com/get started. And with that said, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. I hope this gives you something to think about so you can connect with yourself and where you're sitting with this topic and what type of things are interesting to you, what type of things are red flags. And just thank you for spending time with me. And I hope you have a wonderful day.